So, back in the summer of 1986, I got to work for 10 days for the National Wildlife Society at one of their family conservation summits of about 8 days long in Brunswick, Maine. And my daughter was 10. Her cousin came along who was 16 at the time. And Sarah was in the teen program, and my daughter Emma was in the Ranger Rick program. And we decided we'd stay and have a little tourist time around Boston for one day before we returned to the Midwest. So each of us got to pick one thing to go check out. Emma wanted to go to Plymouth to see the Pilgrims' houses and the Mayflower. Sarah wanted to go see Louisa May Alcott's house. Alcotts were the neighbors of Henry David Thoreau in Concord, Massachusetts, and I wanted to go to Walden Pond to see Thoreau's house. So when we got to that part of our day, we parked the car, and there was a sign that said, the end of the path is the house, but you might want to know that there's a cairn of a pile of rocks that fans of Thoreau have each brought a rock along to leave as homage to him and his thinking about the wisdom of being attuned to nature. So I thought, well, I'll want to add to that, and I would need to pick up a rock along the way. So I'll tell you what the outcome after that, but I want to read you this editor's note, and these are the author Stephen Schnurr's comments on this. In the summer of 1845, 27-year-old Henry David Thoreau borrowed an axe from his neighbor, Bronson Alcott, walked 2 miles from his family's house in Concord, Massachusetts, to the shores of Walden Pond, and so began to build himself a house. He had tried to live as others live, as a schoolmaster, a private tutor, a surveyor, a gardener, a farmer, a house painter, a carpenter, a mason, a day laborer, a pencil maker. See, I don't even have enough fingers. A glass paper maker, a writer, but had found each of these careers disappointing. The mass of men, he wrote, lead lives. Do you remember this quote, anybody? Lead lives of quiet desperation. He was determined not to be one of them. So he set off for the woods to build himself a house that would allow the same easy relationship with the wilderness that the American Indians, whom he greatly admired, once enjoyed. There he intended to reflect on nature, society, and the human spirit, to read widely, to keep his journal, and to write. The daily act of setting down in words one's thoughts, observations, and actions elevates and orders those moments, separating from the great mass of unexamined life. Keeping a daily journal was central to Thoreau's life and art, the very heart of his artistic process. Quote, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, he declared, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die discover that I had not lived. End quote. That singular act produced one of the most influential books of 19th century American literature, Walden, or Life in the Woods, a volume full of prickly prejudices and invaluable insights that, as another great American writer, E.B. White, observed, quote, is like an invitation to life's dance. Thoreau forever changed the way we think about nature and our place in it. Despite Thoreau's lack of recognition during his lifetime, Walden became one of the most widely read books of American literature, influencing minds as diverse as Leo Tolstoy, Mahatma Gandhi, and Robert Frost. The unique product of a unique mind, Walden is part memoir, part nature study, part do-it-yourself manual, part economic and political treatise, part philosophical tract, part poem, part dream. Today, Thoreau's cabin lingers in the American consciousness as an image of perfection, the ideal home, modest, spare, uninhibiting, a place in harmony with nature. In our restless search for meaning, we return repeatedly to that vision of a man with nothing but an axe, walking into the woods and fashioning for himself all that he needs to live honestly and completely. A simple house, Henry David's house. At the very bottom it mentions Walden Pond is in Concord, Massachusetts, 20 miles outside of Boston. The National Park Service designated Walden Pond as a historic landmark in 1965. In the 1980s, developers had plans to build an office building and condominiums in Walden's Woods. Thanks to the efforts of the Walden's Woods project, the endangered lands surrounding the pond were purchased from the developers. Walden Pond State Reservation is open to the public. A replica of Thoreau's house stands there today. So now I'll tell you the end. So I knew the walk was about a quarter of a mile. When I thought I was halfway there, I looked around. I had trouble finding a stone, but I did find one. And when I got to the house, Henry David's house, I realized why I had trouble finding the home. Because the cairn of stones was as big around as the house and almost taller than I could reach. I had to sort of toss my stone to get it high up in the center. Obviously, I was one of a legion of people who admired Thoreau and admired his reflections on nature and our role with nature and wanted to sort of make this trip to Henry David's house. So I just thought I'd share that experience.